I won't have a carb-heavy day if I'm not actually super active. I will still have carbs. I like them. They are delicious. But I won't have the kind of quantity of carbohydrates that I would have on a day when I am riding more frequently. Welcome to the Biking Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Smith, and I lost 50 pounds riding my bike by focusing on what my body can do. Now, I teach other women how to do the same. I am obsessed with completely flipping the script on weight loss so that we can work out to feel good and feel strong. If you are ready to stop dieting, learn how to appreciate your body, and have fun riding your bike, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello there, my friend. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm thrilled to bring you this episode on fueling, both on and off the bike. It is going to be so very useful and so much fun. Before we dive in, though, I have a couple of things that I wanted to mention. First of all, if you are just joining us, welcome to the Biking Wellness community. I have a lot of new listeners the past couple of weeks. I am so excited to meet you all, to chat with you, and I feel so privileged that you have chosen to spend this time with me and spend this time learning about yourself and your body and biking and how good it feels to move your body and have fun. So welcome to the community if you're new here. I am so happy to have you. Also, if you are listening in real time in July of 2025, August 2025, I've just opened up some individual one-on-one coaching slots. They are going quick. I have a few left though. So if you are interested in working with me one-on-one on your biking goals, on your weight loss goals, on your wellness goals, we can have so much fun together and we can really make progress together. So if you are at all interested, I would love to chat with you further. You can DM me on Instagram. I'm just at Sassy Cycling. That's at SASCY Cycling. Or you can send me an email. My email address is Stacy, STACY, at sassy, SASCY.com. I would love to chat with you and see if we are a good fit to work together. So without further ado, I want to just go ahead and dive right into this podcast and this episode. We are going to be talking all about fueling our bodies both on and off the bike. So before I jump into the specifics of fueling, because I know that is why you clicked on this episode, I know you are sitting there thinking, okay, so what do you mean fueling for the bike? What does that mean? What does that look like? I actually think we need to take a step back and just talk about food and the role of food in our lives as both fuel and pleasure. I think that there are a lot of, kind of experts and fitness experts out there who will encourage us to think of food as just the means by which we fuel our bodies. But you know that here in the biking wellness community, we are all about finding the fun. And thinking about food just as fuel is not a lot of fun. At least it certainly isn't a lot of fun for me because food tastes good and food provides pleasure. Food is something that we enjoy. Oftentimes we will eat with family and friends. We will have all of this special food that we enjoy on special occasions. And we don't need to stop that in order to be healthy, in order to lose weight, in order to make gains on the bike. We can have fun, enjoy our food, and make our bodies stronger and fitter all at the same time. So food is also wonderful and pleasurable. I like food way too much to just think about it as fuel. And if we are always just thinking about food as fuel, we start to label some foods as bad and unhealthy, which is fine if we don't have any sort of intense desire to eat those foods. But if we really like those foods, then that can actually give way more power to the food. We feel like we can't control ourselves over it. And none of that is a recipe for having a strong, positive relationship with food. When I realized it was okay to actually just eat food that I liked it, and I stopped wanting it all the time. I was like, oh, I can just have Doritos all the time. Whereas before, I would buy a bag of Doritos and eat half of it on my way home from work. and then roll it up and save the other half of it for the next day. I was not even really tasting the Doritos. I was pretty much just shoveling them into my face. I wasn't enjoying them. I just had a stressful day at work. But when I realized, oh, wait a minute, I can actually just have Doritos every day and I don't have to eat half a bag of Doritos in order to enjoy them, that's when things really started to shift and change. So I think that before I get into all the specifics about fuel, I really just wanted to mention to you that there's a place for all food in your plan. And it even can be the foods that you don't necessarily think are the best for you. So a handful of organic Doritos actually before a bike ride is not a terrible thing. In fact, that's providing fuel for your ride. Eating half of a bag of Doritos when you're not even working out that day because you're stressed out from work, that is not probably going to facilitate your biking or your weight loss goals. But when we get kind of these thoughts about food straight, that's when we can really start making decisions that are going to help us move forward and going to help us have a better relationship with food. I'm sorry if you can hear the airplane in the background. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but it's pretty loud here. So my apologies if you hear that airplane in the background. What I would like you to also think about in terms of your food and in terms of fueling for both your bike rides and fueling for your day is that you need to have a plan. And when you are thinking about your day, I want you to also plan out roughly what you're going to eat that day and take into account, is this a really active day? Am I going to be moving my body a lot today? Or is it going to be a pretty sedentary day? Am I working today and just, kind of running errands? I don't have a lot of physical activity. What do I need in that situation in order to, kind of stay focused and to have energy? That is going to be much different from what you need on a day when you're doing a 3-hour bike ride. I want you to think about every day before you decide, what you're going to eat, how I need to fuel my body today. Am I going to be really active today? I'm going to be pretty sedentary today. What is your plan going to be for the food that you need in order to get through your day? So you just need to have a plan. And when you have a plan, then you have the foods available to you that you need in order to fuel your body the way that you want to fuel it. So what does your fuel look like on an active day versus a sedentary day? Well, that's really going to vary person to person, but I do have some kind of basic ideas and some basic guidelines. The more active you are, the more food that you're going to need to fuel that activity. So, for example, I used to lead bike rides on Wednesday evenings, and those bike rides would be 2 hours long. So I would have to be mindful of that as the day went on to make sure that I had enough fuel in the tank, if you will, enough gas in the car, if you will, metaphorically, in order to get through those rides. The way I fuel my body on a ride on a day like that is going to be much different on a day where I am just going from work, coming home, running errands. So what is the difference? On a day where I am more active, I generally need more carbs. On a day where I am less active, I generally need more fiber and more protein. That is what tends to be the general guidance related to activity, and that does tend to work for me. So on the days when I'm working, for example, my fuel is going to be more like, I need enough protein. I don't want to be sluggish. If I have too many carbs on a day where I'm not active and I'm not burning those carbs in any kind of way, then I am going to probably feel a little bit more sluggish. I'm going to probably be a little bit less alert. So I won't have a carb-heavy day if I'm not actually super active. I will still have carbs. I like them. They are delicious. But I won't have the kind of quantity of carbohydrates that I would have on a day when I am riding more frequently. Today, for example, I am more active today than usual. I went for an hour-long hike with my son today. I also have a strength training workout with my personal trainer this afternoon. So I had an additional amount of carbs with my breakfast today. I had a pancake today, which I wouldn't normally do if I wasn't going to be active. A pancake tends to make me really sluggish. However, when I know that I'm fueling for activity, then that pancake is literally everything that I need in order to get some carbs into my body and be able to use those carbs pretty quickly. So those are just some things to kind of think about. Is this an active day? Is this a sedentary day? How you fuel for an active versus a sedentary day is probably going to differ. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is some fueling basics for active days. Now, again, these are basics. That means that you may have a day where you're just a little bit more active than other days. You're probably not going to need as much fuel. You are going to have days where you're very, very active and you're going to need way more than you normally do. So on those days, what I want you to be kind of thinking about and the kinds of questions that I'd like for you to be asking yourself is, how active am I going to be? When is that activity going to be during the day? And how can I make sure that I have enough fuel before that activity, even during that activity, if I need fuel during the activity? And finally, what is my post-recovery fuel, food, going to look like so I can make sure that my body recovers properly from that activity? Now, I keep saying activity because maybe biking's not your thing. Maybe you are hiking. Maybe you are running. Maybe you are rowing. You're doing some other kind of physical activity. Swimming is a big one. That swimming makes me so hungry, my friends. I don't think there's any activity in the world that makes me hungry like swimming. So whatever it is that your activity is, whatever your thing is, if it is a long, grueling activity, you are going to want to make sure that you fuel your body differently than, for example, a day where it's not quite so intense. So is an hour-long hike and a half-hour-long strength training routine for me more active than most days? Yes. For me right now, that is more active than most days. But still, I'm not going to be fueling like I have a 3-hour bike ride coming up. That's going to be a different way of fueling. So you're going to be kind of testing and finding out what works for you. So in terms of basics, about an hour before your activity, before your longer bike ride, you're probably going to want some kind of protein carbohydrate combo. Peanut butter and crackers is my go-to. I love to have peanut butter and cracker snack before a ride if I have about an hour, half hour before the ride to kind of eat in advance. If I'm eating right before a longer ride, then I'm going to look at something that's going to digest even quicker than that. So something like a banana. If, however, I have a good 2 hours before a ride, then I'm going to be looking for like protein, fiber, maybe some vegetables, and carbohydrates. And maybe my carbohydrate amount is going to be a little bit bigger than it would be if I weren't active that day. So that's just kind of a general guideline. If you have 2 hours before, then you want kind of a carb, protein, fiber combo. Only about an hour, then just get some kind of simple carb and peanut butter or protein combo. Can you tell I have peanut butter on the brain? My gosh. And if you only have a few minutes before a ride and you want to get something in, then you want something to be super easy and digestible and just kind of focus on the carb, okay? If you're going to have an active day, that's my pre-fuel suggestion. Now, in terms of fueling during an activity, here is a general rule. If your activity is going to be more than an hour long, you might need some fuel during the activity. And there are a couple of ways that you can get that. So for example, if I'm doing a 2 or 3 hour bike ride, then I'm going to be looking at making sure that I am having some carbohydrates on my person that I can ingest during the bike ride. So if I'm riding for 2 hours, I'm probably going to bring some gummies with me, like some scratch gummies or some Cliff gummies, the Cliff Block gummies. I like those. And if it's longer than 2 hours, I'm probably also going to bring something like a honey stinger waffle so that I have, that quick, easy carbohydrate on my person so that I can make sure that my body's fueling for the rides. I might also have a hydration mix that has sugar in it too. I generally find that if it's just a 2 hour ride, hydration mix and gummies is enough. If it's more than 2 hours, then I also need that honey stinger waffle if I'm in really good biking shape. If I'm not, and I haven't been riding as much, which is me right now, my long rides are much, much fewer and further between, then I might actually do the honey stinger waffle about an hour in, regardless of what's going on. Because the last thing you want to do is find yourself in a situation where you don't have enough energy to get through your bike ride. It's called bonking, and I've been there, and it totally sucks. You want to make sure that you have the fuel that you need. And a great way to get that fuel is through making sure that you have stuff with you on the bike. Now, there are going to be people who are going to be coming at me and saying, okay, but that's processed food. And I like to eat real food on a bike. And I like to bring my own snacks on a bike. And I like to, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh my goodness, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the bike is one of my favorite things. If it's a longer ride, I love to have a peanut butter and jelly halfway through. I just think it's the best. Grape jelly, Skippy peanut butter. I was on this organized ride, my Bikes Fight Cancer ride, and they literally said what kind of jelly and peanut butter was in each sandwich. So they had like the brand names and everything. I was in heaven. I digress. What I'm trying to say here is that many people will kind of scoff at these kind of processed nutritional food supplement types of things. And my response to that is, you do you. That's great if you have the time to kind of put together a homemade snack and such. Where I'm kind of going with all of this is that you really need to do what works for you. And for me, a lot of the times it's just getting this prepackaged stuff that I know has worked before and will continue to work with me. And when I'm ready and able to experiment with other stuff in a different stage of my life, then I absolutely will. So if you like to have real food on the bike and you're like, oh my gosh, Stacy, it's so easy, you don't have any idea, please, please, please email me, DM me, let me know what it is that you're doing, because I would love to hear it. But for me right now, I just grab the packaged stuff because that's what works for me and that's what's easy. Okay? So the idea is that you want to make sure that you are keeping on top of the fueling for your longer activities. Now, if it's a shorter activity, say maybe you're only doing an hour and a half, you might not need as much. If I'm riding my bike for an hour and a half, I definitely don't need a honey stinger waffle. I definitely only need some more basic stuff. So just kind of which kind of brings me to my next important point, which is to test and find out what works for you. So what works for me might not necessarily work for you and your body. For some people, 60 grams of carbohydrate every hour works great. That's the baseline. For other people, that's not enough, or that could even be too much. If I'm only doing an hour and a half bike ride, I probably don't need to do 60 grams because I'm not going to be doing as much as I would be doing and exerting as much and need as much energy as if I was doing a 3-hour bike ride. So those are just some things to kind of think about and some things to kind of keep in mind. I personally have a tendency to err on the side of overfueling versus underfueling. I know that sometimes, and I feel like we as women especially can kind of get into our head that we don't want to, defeat the fact that we're burning so many calories by eating more. And I want to challenge you on that one and just say, hey, it does not feel great to bonk on a ride. It does not feel great to not have enough energy to actually complete your ride. If you need to lose weight, I am all about losing weight. I talk about weight loss all the time. I think it's perfectly acceptable to want to lose weight, but please don't mess around with fuel on the bike. It's just not putting your body or your brain in a good situation. So if you are thinking about, I really have some weight loss goals, the time to restrict and cut back, in my opinion, is never. We're not talking about restriction. We're talking about, kind of making easy, doable change. But if you are reducing calories, you don't want to do it now. This is not the time to reduce calories. You want to make sure your body has the fuel that it needs for the ride. So speaking of having the fuel that it needs for the ride, the fuel that your body needs for recovery is just as important. So Dr. Stacy Sims suggests that we take in probably 25 to 30 grams of protein within approximately 30 to 45 minutes, if not sooner, of our ride. The idea here is to make sure that our muscles have what they need in order to repair themselves, and our body has what it needs in order to repair ourselves. And she also will be the first person to tell you that if you feel like you need to cut back somewhere and you want to lose weight, your post-ride recovery is not the place to do that. In fact, you can actually be hurting your weight loss progress by not recovering properly. So that's just one more thing to keep in mind. You want to test and find out what works for you. Every body is different. We are all kind of processing food in different ways. And for some of us, certain foods are going to feel terrible and they're going to cause some stomach upset. And so you want to kind of try different foods and see what works for you and see what doesn't, and try different amounts and see what works for your energy level and see what doesn't. And just keep an open mind and play with it and have fun. The idea is we want to have fun. We want to enjoy our food. I always will say, like, I'm here for all the snacks. I love gummies so much. And to me, it's just really pleasurable to have them on a bike ride. I just think they're so delicious, especially the scratch ones. So those are things to kind of think about and keep in mind. Try different ways of fueling your body. Try different types of foods. See which foods work and see which foods don't, so that you can move forward on the bike, have the fuel that you need, feel good, and be able to feel strong on the bike, because we really want to feel strong. We want to feel like, oh my gosh, I can tackle this ride. This feels really great. I'm having such a good time. So the idea is that, just kind of keep an open mind, test and find out what works, how much fuel you actually need, how it feels in your body. If you find that you feel like, oh wow, that was great, but I feel like I had a little bit too much, then try a little bit less next bike ride and just kind of see how that works for you. If you are in this mindset of, okay, food is both for fuel and pleasure, and all food has a place in my life. I'm going to fuel a certain way on active days. I'm going to fuel a different way on inactive days. I'm going to follow some basic guidelines, and then I'm going to test and find out what works for me. Then you're going to feel so much more empowered to tackle your food choices and to tackle your performance on the bike. So that is my advice to you, my friends, about fueling. And I really hope that you were able to get something out of this episode, that it resonated with you. If you have a friend that you think could benefit from this message, that maybe just doesn't know so much about fueling, or maybe they're a little too intense about their fueling and their fueling choices, and they need to just kind of take a deep breath and have a different perspective, I would love it if you would share this episode with her. It would mean so much to her, and it would mean so much to me. Finally, I do still have a few spots available for one-to-one coaching. So if that's something you're interested in, please do reach out to me at stacy@sassy.com. That's STACY at SASCY.com. That's my email address. And I do have another request. If you have a favorite snack that you like to eat when you are active, either in preparation for being active or if you're active on the bike, please, please, please do let me know. I am always up for all the snacks and all of the snack ideas. So until next time, my friend, ride on. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Biking Wellness Podcast. Be sure to head on over to sassy.com/guide, SASCY.com/guide, to get my completely free Lose Weight Biking Quick Start Guide, so that you can get started with simple, doable weight loss today. That's SASCY.com/guide.